Okay, grade 8. We're doing area of three-dimensional objects, and your first part of your review was to find the area formulas for 2D shapes. And some of you had a little bit of difficulty with it, but hopefully today we'll be able to get you squared away. No pun intended. So the first shape we're going to start with here is a square. Okay? And a square, if I put these little markings here, these little lines, each of those lines that have that little one tick in it means they're the same length. Okay? So that tells us by looking at the shape that this is a square. And if I say that this side length is 8 meters, and I gave you this question, I asked you for what is the area and what is the perimeter, you have to be able to figure out that all these sides are going to be the same. So you don't have to write them, but you know that each of these sides is going to be 8 meters. Okay. Now your formula for this, to find the area of a square, is going to be side squared. And we get that from Pythagoras. And we're going to write it just like that, s squared. And that's actually why the exponent of 2 is called a square, because it's the area of a square. If we substitute this 8, I'm going to substitute that 8 because it's my side length right here. I'm going to put 8 squared. Now, because I substituted, you should use brackets when you substitute. When I have 8 squared, I know that that means 8 multiplied by itself twice. And I'm going to put 64. Since that is meters, I'm going to put meters squared, and I'm going to circle it. That is the area of the square. It's 64 meters squared, because 8 squared, you don't have to write this, but 8 squared is 8 multiplied by itself twice. And in fact, you shouldn't write it, because in no spot in your formula should you use a multiplication sign. In perimeter, there are 4 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of them are the same length. So 4 multiplied by the side length will tell us the perimeter. Some people think 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 is one way to do it, but in grade 4, I think, you learned that repeated addition is the same thing as multiplication. So 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8 is the same thing as 4 times 8. Okay, so for our formula, we're going to use 4s. No multiplication symbol between there, just like a coefficient and a variable. So I'm going to substitute 8 again, right where the s is. So it's going to be 4 multiplied by the side length, which is 8. That's going to be 32 meters this time, not meters squared. Because when we're talking about perimeter, we're talking about the distance around the outside of something. So if I traveled the perimeter of that square, I would have traveled 32 meters. Okay? And the area of the square is 64 square meters. For the next one, we're going to use a rectangle. So we're going to draw a rectangle here. And again, I'm going to put a tick here and a tick here, and say this is 4 meters. I'm going to put a double tick here and a double tick here, and say that this is 8 meters. Okay? So again, we're going to find our area, and we're going to find our perimeter. The formula we're going to use for area is going to be length multiplied by width. But length, we're going to use a cursive L, and we're not going to use a multiplication sign like this, not length times width. We're actually going to treat it like, oh, that's not what I wanted to have. We're going to treat it like LW only, okay? So if I gave you 2x, you know that this is 2 multiplied by x, right? Just basic algebra. This is L multiplied by W. So really we can think of L as kind of being a coefficient, if you want to think of it that way, as to W, okay? But then we substitute our 8 for our length and our 4 for our W. And then we multiply that out to get 32. And since they're meters, that would be square meters inside here, okay? So again, if you wanted to think about why it's square meters and not meters, you could actually, you know what, I'll do a new page here. Hang on one second. If you want to know why it's meters squared and not meters, I can make a table. So I can draw a custom table. We'll go 8 columns. Oh, that's 9 by 4. I'll press OK. And there's our 8 by 4, okay? So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 meters this way. And it's 4 meters this way. And you can see that this right here is actually 1 square meter, right? It's a meter by a meter. So if we think about that area, we would have 32 square meters inside there. And that's why the area of that rectangle is 32 square meters. The formula for perimeter. We have one length here, and we have one length here that make up the distance around. We have one width here, and we have one width over here. So really we have 2 lengths, and we have 2 widths. So the formula we're going to use is going to be 2L plus 2W, or if you wanted to use distributive property, You could use it like you have two lengths and you have two widths. You could use it that way if you want to. For a simple formula, it's going to be 2 lengths plus 2 widths. Therefore, you have 2 8s and you have 2 4s, which means the 2 lengths added together are going to be 16 meters. The 2 widths added together are going to be 8 meters. And therefore, the total area, or the total perimeter is going to be 24 meters in total to go around this. So it's 8 plus 4 plus 8 plus 4, or 24 meters is the perimeter. Our next shape is going to be the triangle. So I'll grab a triangle here, and we'll use this one here. There's a triangle. Okay. Now for this triangle, we need to have 4 measurements. The first measurement is going to be this. This is called the height of the triangle. It goes from the base to the apex of the triangle. All right. So we're going to call this one our height, and we're going to make it 8 meters. This distance here again is the base. We're going to call that 10 meters. This is one of the slants or the sides of the triangle. We'll make this one, we'll make it, I don't know, 9 meters, and we'll make this one over here. I know it's not, we'll make it 6 meters. Even though I know it doesn't look like those are the measurements, we'll just pretend. It's okay. So your formula for area, back in grade 7, you learned that it's base times height divided by 2. Now when we write our formula, make sure it's BH over 2. No multiplication signs. There's our base, which is 10, multiplied by the height, which is 8. Again, we have that variable next to a variable, which means multiplication, divided by 2. 10 times 8 is 80. 80 divided by 2. And 80 divided by 2 is 40. So the area of that triangle, as you learned in grade 7, is 40 square meters. Now the perimeter is really easy. Okay? So here's one side, here's another side, and here's another side. That's the distance around. So I'm just going to label them 1, 2, and 3. And our formula is going to be side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3. Okay, and side 1 is 10 meters. So I'm going to substitute that where S1 is. I'm going to put 9 for side 2, and I'm going to put 6 for side 3. That's going to be 19 plus 6, which is 25 meters as the perimeter of that triangle. So the answer for that is 25 meters for the perimeter. And our last shape, that's just a review from grade 7, is your circle. So I'll draw my circle here. And I'll put my little dot right here. And I'll put my line through that dot. And I'll say my diameter is, I don't know, we'll make it easy, 10 meters. So the diameter of this circle is 10 meters. So your formula for area is pi multiplied by the radius squared. Now there is no multiplication sign here, because we know that if with the pi symbol is really kind of being treated like a coefficient, pi r squared, that's multiplied pi by the radius squared. When I substitute pi, usually I say pi is 3, just to make it easy. So I'm going to put 3 where the pi symbol is. I'm going to put a bracket, and I'm going to substitute the r. Now since the diameter is 10, the radius will be 5 meters. So I'm going to put a 5 there and a squared. Now bed mass tells us the order of operations. Brackets, those aren't brackets, those are just parentheses around numbers to separate them for multiplication. This e here is an exponent, and that is an exponent right there, which means the first thing I'm going to do is not multiplication, but rather the exponent. So I'm going to go 3 multiplied by 5 squared. 5 squared is 25, and therefore the area will be 75 square meters. Okay. When I do perimeter of a circle is also known as circumference, and the formula for that is pi multiplied by diameter. Substitute pi for 3 and the diameter for 10. Multiply those out to get 30 meters, and that is the distance around the outside of that circle.